Warning, the following podcast has been approved for free thinkers. If you are not that type of individual, this listen may be difficult. Enjoy.
All right. Welcome to the Fresh Juice Podcast. I'm your humble host, Juice. I'm here with my special guest, Medvis Jackson.
What up?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you being here, man. And I just want to say my cousin Trav, shout out to him, Trav Marquis. He put this together. Need to get to that water. You know what I mean? But off top. But yeah, he put this together because he felt we would relate on some things.
Oh yeah,
and even have some things.
Trav's a deep guy, man. I got to meet him through working through our workplace downtown.
Okay.
And he's just, and his music is thoughtful. So if you haven't gotten the music yet, Trav Marquis, it's good. It's lyrical, but he has some dance joints on there too. So, and I'm not a guy that's to throw out everybody's music, so I definitely would stand by what he's doing.
I like that. Got to be picky about what you listen to.
But what you tell other people to listen to?
right. Like exactly what you endorse. You know what I mean? And oh man, so we co-founder of the Digilog.
I can go into that a little bit. Yeah. So in 2016, so I used to live in New York City.
Talk about it.
So I grew up in Detroit.
Nice.
Went to school upstate New York. So my sister was going to law school in New York, and I became a lawyer in New York. So after college, I wasn't, I figured there wasn't a lot in Detroit just because past summers I wasn't finding a lot to do when I was here.
Right.
So I went there after graduation, eventually found a job and stayed out there for a while. So in 2016, so there from 2011 to 2016. And so in 2016, I was kind of contracting at a company called Wix.com to help people build codeless websites.
Right.
And so I was doing helping people come into the lounge, and they would work on the websites, and I would kind of walk them through what they were having problems with their website. And so they also had a co-working component to the office. And so one of the co-workers who was there, like people who were just working on their own stuff at the office, that they all had to use Wix. It was a guy, Andrew DeLeon, and he was running a company called Blank Label Records, and he was helping independent artists in New York City get off the ground. And actually worked with some cats from Detroit while he was living out there, so that was cool. And so at the time, I was doing some blogging of my own about the intersection of art, finance, and startups, and looking and really focusing on companies that were founded by Black, Hispanic, women founders.
Right.
And as you know, like less than at least as of a few years ago, less than 1% of the money that's invested by venture capital firms into startups goes to Black or Hispanic founders.
Wow. So that basically means when it comes to allowing people to borrow money for businesses.
Yeah, you're investing it to get it back.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
But it's not a borrow where they got to pay it back, right? It's once you make it, if your shares in the company go up, and if they get an exit, whether the company gets bought or the company goes public, you then
so it's actual shit. Okay, see, and that's why I clarified.
So like as you know, like there's borrowing, and it's where somebody's invested. Borrowing is like, I don't care if you fail or lose, I need that money back. That's what a lot of us we call that debt equity, right? So I get whatever, but then you have equity or debt investment. Then you have equity investment. That's where people can. If you lose, I lose. So I gotta really believe in you.
Right. So you're in this almost like a partner.
Almost like a partner, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, hey, listen, teaching the listeners something and me at the same time.
That's stuff that I didn't know. I just had to learn. And that's one cool thing about blogging was that it forced me to have to get a lot of information and a lot of Wikipedia, learning, looking up definitions, and know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so, but writing, in addition to me doing I was working as a freelance web designer. So contracting at Wix and then building websites for small businesses.
Yeah.
And so, writing can be very intensive, and you're not really sure if people really read full articles anymore. Like, we're more of a headline, we'll skim it and then move on.
Exactly.
So, I was like, man, this is it takes up a lot of time, and then I can't crank out articles like, Gossip or like Baller Alert. So, so I met Drew, and Drew was into music. I was like, so, in writing about startups, I realized, and also digging into hip-hop, because I grew up not into that hip-hop very much.
Right.
And so in learning about hip-hop, I'm realizing, this is one big startup. Like, you literally had risk. It was an unknown genre. It was like really just like music in the streets.
Yeah.
You take a group like Rockefeller Records, you know,
Right,
Dame
right.
Dash and I'm realizing these guys took on massive amounts of risk. They took their own money and invested into shows, individuals,
Exactly.
and figured out how to scale that investment by partnering with labels and doing distribution deals.
Exactly.
And it's like, this is a startup. Like the narrative that our people are risk averse is incredibly false.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we take on, people take on bad risks, like really dangerous risks sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so these are people who took on
Definitely take risks.
creative risk and invested a lot of the time. I mean, we don't even talk about the number of cats in the hip hop game that were essentially homeless for better. You know, they had no real place to stay. They were kind of crowd surfing with friends and bouncing from this place. We kind of skim over that fact now, but like these are people who they skipped out on getting a job as a sanitation worker or getting a job, as a security guard or doing anything else, getting a trade. And like, I want to rap, I want to write, and they probably sounded crazy to a lot of people or irresponsible, and they did it anyways.
But investing their time, effort, and it's like they knew something that everybody else didn't because they had that vision, but they were also putting in that work.
They put in a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, because whether you're a writer or you're a producer or you're an MC, that's a lot of skill. And at that time, you're thinking about the 90s and the 80s, where there wasn't a ton of templates. Especially looking at what Dame Dash was doing at that time.
Definitely,
there wasn't a lot of people to follow, so the risk was there,
exactly.
uncertainty. And I think that's key to it, that calling yourself a startup, is the fact that there's risk. So if you open up a bakery, the fact is, all you got to do is be able to bake good and run a good operation, because people will buy bread. But there was no real notion that the rest of the world would buy into hip hop.
True.
And so I thought about that, and we used to talk over the water cooler with Drew, and I was like, man, like, I would love to create content with you, and but partner up, because I can't, just writing blog articles on my own. Like, I'm like, I don't know if this is a great use of my time.
Right.
So by working with somebody else, it created up a lot of efficiencies. Not knowing that this guy was a masterful creative and programmer. So my main responsibility with the Digilog has been weekly getting out the newsletter. Yeah. I'm now slowly pivoting, trying to find more time outside of my work responsibilities, because we're still developing the business model and building company. And shout out to Drew for bringing in a lot more people into the operation. And I kind of stepped back to kind of focus on paying off, setting myself up personally financially. But I still put out the weekly newsletter for the Digilog.
Okay.
And cover expenses that we incur. So nice. I'm at this point now where I'm still putting money into the Digilog.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's 4 years anniversary this last weekend.
Nice.
Saturday,
okay. Yeah. Congratulations, man.
Yeah. So Drew organized a team out there in New York. They organized a big a live stream on Twitch. Had artists performing live on video. And what we really focus on is, my angle was coming from the culture side, was I wanted black folks to understand that the hip hop music in general many times has been our startup, right? When we lacked access to technology, we lacked access to educational curriculum that will help us learn how to program. And we lacked access to traditional institutional finance. So VCs weren't going to invest in us. Banks weren't even going to give us a debt loan. Yeah. So I wanted us to understand that, like, you can make money in this industry, in the music industry, but not have to be the talent. Right. So we would do a lot of workshops, and still do a lot of workshops, whether you're an artist trying to monetize as an independent, whether you're trying to get a label deal, learning how that process works, but also are you teaching you digital media skills to help you work with musicians, or pick up skills to help you get that dream job at Spotify, or get that dream job at SoundCloud, or wherever it might be that might be hiring.
Real positions, just like how we're looking for jobs in this this regular world that we don't even want to be participating in. Facts. You know what I'm saying? We're working in restaurants that we don't even like people enough to work in restaurants.
There you go.
But we would love to work in the music industry. But
how do you make money?
Exactly.
How do you make money? Like, because you could work with a friend or a cousin who wants to rap and sing. But then how do you find people who want to actually pay for their songs?
Exactly.
How do you get them sponsorship deals? And a sponsorship deal, it can start at like $200, where, every time they drop a YouTube joint, it has a logo, or at the end of it, it has something that lists the name of whoever's sponsoring them, right? Yeah. And if you're depending on how you're targeting, how you're targeting your uploads and your audience to the geography, for a business that's already going to advertise somewhere else,
Right.
it might make sense for them to $200 a
Exactly.
month to invest in that nightlife
Depending
if
on
that
how
attracts
many
the
people-
audience.
Yeah, exactly.
How
Like
people see it.
if it's gonna be in front of like when I started thinking about some networks can't have 500,000 people watching every night. You know what I mean? So there's YouTube creators with 500,000 subscribers, and they feel like they're not doing enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're a TV network, homie. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, but
That's how you
it's all about
target
exactly.
How you target it? Do you go through the ad network? Some people, what they do is if they do a podcast, they read their ads in. So they get their own. They don't just try to put on the ads on YouTube ads on their videos.
Right.
They monetize that way. They'll outside go to a third party, orchestrate a deal saying, hey, with the audience that we have, we'll read off your ads inside of the episodes.
Right.
And so that they don't have to go through YouTube at all. So there's a lot of ways to make money and helping people understand. And one thing when I do the weekly newsletter is you look at big companies like Apple Music, Spotify, Warner, Universal. You don't see enough of us given how much content we create.
Talk about it. Exactly. In leadership positions.
Corporate.
Corporate
People with the budgets.
That's the word I look for.
People with the budgets. And so not only I think there could be a skewed notion of what's going to sell, because if you think about it, if you have a disproportionate number of people who grew up in predominantly white suburbs picking music for an urban audience,
what would they put out?
What would they put out?
Because what do they want to hear? What do they want us to hear?
What it is wanted to hear. And you can fetishize people. What's a
Exactly.
fetish, right? A fetish is you reduce the individuality and
Exactly.
creativity of a person, and you make them into what you want them to do. So you can
Talk
fetishize
about it.
women, you can fetishize anything. And so if you don't want to, I just don't know if we would have gotten all the De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest in 2005.
Right.
Given how the industry how music had become an industry by 2005, and
I know
who's
what you're
picking
saying.
the sound.
Right. Because it's like, okay, we not ready for Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? Like, because even by that time, the radio was overran by other things besides Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. You know what I mean? So when you got two dudes, you stagger Wale's albums through there. Even now, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I feel like people got so far away from radio. You know what I mean? Because it's straight programming. They expose themselves.
Oh, they literally call it programming.
Yeah,
They're programming. If you play the song enough, just how many songs have you heard that you didn't like it the first time you did?
But number 10, you like, yo, that.
You just bop your head to it because they're
on,
programming you. Helping us not only to understand how, if you want to get into the established industry, how to get in there, but also if you want to monetize your own, you want to build your company. Our the in-person networking events provide a space for people to collaborate with one another.
Right.
Before the shutdown, I got to do a few workshops at the Detroit Public Library. It was
nice.
It's supposed to be a larger series to help artists really just kind of look at their approach to their work and kind of figure out the best way to streamline or the best way to make the process work for them. For example, social media. A lot of folks don't really enjoy going back and forth and posting all the time.
Facts.
But they know they're supposed to do it to get exposure. At least that's what they're told. Well, how do you rethink social media?
Right.
So, do you think of social media as your newsletter sends that you send out once a month? Because maybe you really don't have all the Twitter and IG, or you don't post to it a lot, right? But you find a way to communicate with other people.
Talk about it.
Why is that not social media?
Right.
You might be more comfortable creating a visual newsletter that can also be texted off. Use like a MailChimp. You can text that out to the link.
Exactly.
And do that.
It's very similar to how Kevin Hart built his audience. Do you know that story?
Yeah.
So when Kevin Hart used to do his shows, he'd do small shows and everything, like comedy shows, he would literally stay after, meet all the fans and everything, which is good, touch the people. But he would get everybody's email address. Everybody.
Yeah.
So every show he did, every city he went to,
about it.
he was building a whole what do you call it? A database. You know what I mean? And so he would send out mass text. I'm gonna be here. I'm sending out mass emails, mass text, whatever the case was. He was, like you said, doing social media in real life, straight to people's phones. We never even saw those posts because it wasn't a post. It was straight to somebody's phone. It's like, and they probably felt like it was personal. Like, yo, Kevin Hart just emailed me.
One of the women that came to one of our workshops, Viviana. She's from Cuba.
Nice.
So Cuba,
Uh-huh.
she moved here to Detroit beginning of last year. I mean,
Okay.
end of last year. So she's new to Detroit. But
Right.
she's from Cuba, and she was like, yeah, we don't even have all this. We can't even use all the social media in Cuba because the internet's not. It's not as we don't have data plans like y'all have it here, right?
Right.
And so she said that she was a promoter there.
Huh?
So he says you have to text message a lot.
Sheesh,
That's
okay.
still, to me, that's still like social media. And
Definitely.
I know Ryan Leslie had that company, Disruptive, he may still have it, Disruptive Multimedia.
Okay.
He has a thing called a superphone, and so he could send out customized text messages to his fans.
Nice.
So if he was performing in
Right, I
New
know
York,
what you're talking about.
in Brooklyn, he would text and say, hey Medvis, I'm gonna be in Brooklyn next weekend.
Yeah.
I would love for you to come to the show.
It's hot. Yeah.
And you reply back, and then
Yeah.
it goes to their list of emails, and whoever his assistant is, they get back to the people who are texting back with them.
That's hard, man.
So it's like, it's a way to be personal. So again, the Digilog, the idea is music education, right? How do we teach our people ways to get into the industry, or to work around it, or to build alongside it? So
Right. Okay.
that's huge.
Yeah. Definitely.
One thing that inspired this too is like growing up as a kid. I remember kids were like, "What do you want to be? Rapper, basketball player?"
That's exactly what I was about to get to.
And people would give so much scoring on that. Like,
Talk about it.
y'all need to learn how to be lawyers, become doctors, and y'all need to learn, become ministers. Like, the whole suit and tie mentality. And the reality is that a lot of the schools in which they were telling kids not to become rappers or basketball players, they weren't providing them with the educational tools necessary to be necessarily get into law school. They weren't giving them that foundation to get into law school, get into medical school.
Right.
And so not only are you shooting these kids' dreams down, but you're not working within the framework that they know.
And not preparing them for the real world anyway. Like, so why wouldn't they have unrealistic dreams when reality hasn't really been too kind in the first place?
And then to me, I think it's helping people understand. Look, would you really enjoy performing in front of a crowd of 500 people, and they might boo you off the stage and not respond to your stuff?
Yeah.
Like, are you really want to be a rapper, or do you really love hip hop?
Right.
One thing that Damon Dash inspired me was
that's a good
like
question.
he was selling crack.
Yeah.
Smart guy, went to boarding school, but life happened and he got into the crack trade. But he said one thing he saw was that, like, all the guys that were in the music game, they were able to wear fly clothes, have around not to objectify women, but around beautiful women,
Right.
and drive dope cars and look like the dude selling the crack.
Right.
And he was like, damn, so like you could make all this money and have fun and not have to worry about having to fight for your corner or
And
shoot
going to
somebody
jail,
because they cut and going to jail and all this kind of stuff. So he realized from what my interviews I watched of him, he was like, I realized I wanted to be like those guys. Like, I didn't want to be a corny cat having to put on a shirt and tie and go walk around with my resume trying to get a job somewhere.
Right.
So I think, like, for a lot of kids, it's like, if they can get a shot, if they have the writing skills, if they have the critical listening skills to become a marketing executive, or you give them the editing skills to become a digital creative, who creates all the memes and all this stuff to make social media pop? We do.
Exactly.
Black Twitter, we do.
Right.
So how many people could actually, become the social media director, social media and analyst at a label? They could.
Right.
But what happens is that we tell kids you have to become a doctor or lawyer when you love R&B, you love hip hop.
And so now because we is dope, you know what I'm saying? Because that melanin do be popping. You go to school to be a doctor, you become a doctor, and you hate it.
Or you realize you just don't like. You want to become a doctor because it was a respectable thing to do, but it wasn't what you really loved.
Yeah. And so by hating, I don't mean like hate it like as far as you know what I mean. And I'm saying hate the decision you made. You know what I mean? Like, damn, I really could have. You know what I mean? Like,
you also pushing people. We tell people when we expose people. It's not like because when I was growing up a kid, I did not hear them very often tell us to become nurses. Nursing's a good profession from my understanding, right?
Yeah.
It's cheaper education, it's less years of study, and it's good money. Actually, have interesting schedules too, right? They tell you to become a doctor, but the reality is, like, if you tell a kid to become a doctor or a lawyer, those are weed out majors in college anyway.
Right.
Or college is something you have to apply afterwards, right?
Yeah,
you got to pick up a bunch of debt. So, like, you literally squashing a kid's dream and then pushing them into the hardest industry. We should have lawyers, but then maybe you could become a lawyer in the music industry. It's basically helping, like, destigmatizing our love of an industry, of a genre that we created that the rest of the world is now trying to profit off.
I've experienced, like, I know I experienced it in my life personally, just at home. having things in hip hop and having hip hop taken away from you in certain forms and in certain ways, and then you double back all of this time later to still do hip hop, and now it's accepted by your family. Now it's, you know what I'm saying, cool, but it's like, damn, I could have.
You lost some time.
Exactly, we could have been doing
Lost
this. You know what I
time.
mean?
I mean, schools should really embrace this stuff. They should have invest, build up their computer labs, right?
Sound engineering should be in every school.
Encourage kids to use social media at school. Like, we think of social media as a platform to bully each other or spread gossip or rumors and instigate fights. But no, you should be teaching kids how to. I mean, schools should be teaching kids wellness anyways. Wellness includes the ability to make positive decisions.
Right.
So this is why, as black folks, we have to really stop thinking about respectability and what looks good, and have an analysis that's like, is what this student wants to do with their life, is it healthy? Would they be able, if they're successful, would they be able to feed a family off of this?
True.
And if there's a career in that, then one should be able to then structure the curriculum around, okay, why is mathematics important? You know, if you want to become a sound engineer. Right? Why is physics important in terms of sound engineering? Look at waves and sound and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Giving kids a little bit wider range, because these are real jobs, and when you get into
sound engineering,
any
type of engineering, when you like, you know what I mean? Like what?
Yep.
Yeah. Like what else could be said? That's the future right there. You know what I mean? It's computers. It's
exactly. So that's what I mean. And then on the legal side, I mean, you can do the publishing. I mean. Again, when you look in the industry, who do rappers have as their lawyers and accountants? It's not often us.
Talk about it. Facts.
It's not often us.
Yeah.
So you're taught to hate something that they know they want to love.
Right. Exactly.
You devalue it, so you'll give it away.
Exactly. Like they want, they want you to hopefully consume it, but definitely have no parts in. The benefits of it, you know what I mean? Like, and so, I'm definitely with you there. And it seems like, really, for the Digilog, I need to have a whole separate podcast episode for just that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm.
It's
I'm
something
looking
that
at,
definitely this year, especially with COVID, it taught me, like, my goal was to pay down student debt. It kind of set myself up financially where I could invest more of my time into the Digilog in addition to more money. And so this is my year where I'm really trying to, readjust my schedule so I can start putting in like 20 hours a week into the Digilog like I used to. Like I was going hard with it before. Now I put around every week. I put around like 5 hours or so, 4 or 5 hours. But I want to get that up to, up to 20 hours a week at least. So eventually go full time with it.
Nice, man. Well, yeah. So just to put a button on that, a button on the positive black things you've been doing. I want to kind of shift to former Challenge Detroit. And is it a former Challenge Detroit fellow?
Yeah, I was a former Challenge Detroit. Yeah, so the program is called Challenge Detroit.
Okay.
I was a fellow within Challenge Detroit.
Right. And that's
so every year they pick about, usually around like 25, 26 folks. It varies. And they place you at a company in Detroit.
Nice.
You make around like 34, 38, I think like 38. So it's not a crazy salary, but for me, it gave me a reason to come back to Detroit.
Right.
And instead of having to learn, it kind of really gave you a good introduction to how the city operates at an institutional level. And so it was good for that. I was placed at Detroit Homecoming.
Nice.
Detroit Homecoming helps former Detroiters reinvest into the city.
Okay.
But with Challenge Detroit, help give you a circle of people that you kind of know, especially if you're not from here. Well, I was from here, but I hadn't lived here for almost 10 years. So it gave me a base of people to kind of connect with professionally in the city. I definitely encourage folks to, to apply for the 2021 class, or 2021 class. Because of COVID, they're having to go virtual.
Okay, so definitely, if y'all
you can drop the link.
This, I was just about to say in the description, it'll be a link for Challenge Detroit. But you said something about homecoming. That sounded very interesting. You said touch on that, man. That's I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Detroit. Go to Detroit Homecoming. Detroit. If you Google, YouTube, got a website. So the idea is for a lot of cities, especially cities like Detroit, Gary, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati. A lot of the valedictorians of these high schools, it's a good chance they're gonna leave.
They get money, leave. Find a small, nice community somewhere far
outside the city, or a lot of times they go towards the coast. They go to places like DC, New York, Boston.
Even places like, Kalamazoo, you move far out and you invest in that community. That's what ends up happening. All those dollars that basically this community raised the person,
Yeah.
they go, you know what I mean, make
Yeah.
money and build another community up. Which I'm sure most of them don't go with that mentality, like, oh, let me go build up this community instead of my own. But that's kind of what college promotes. You know what I mean? Like not going home. Oh yeah,
And also, you get what happens to these cities like Detroit is that we were systematically divested from. So if you're a business owner and you want to make facade improvements to your building, is any bank going to give you a business loan to make updates to that improvement?
Yeah,
right? From my understanding, a lot of the real estate development that's happening in the city, a lot of it is funded by its equity investments. So it's portfolios with funds from high financial net worth individuals who are funding these deals because banks still are not as likely to fund some large residential projects in Detroit. I mean, we just came out of bankruptcy.
Right.
So especially if you're not talking about funding stuff downtown, you're trying to fund stuff in neighborhoods.
I was about to say, like you said, residential.
So with residential and commercial, through Homecoming, the idea was whether it's somebody getting involved with a nonprofit or getting involved with a putting money into an investment fund, buying property. The idea is to take money that is sitting out in Los Angeles with the former Detroiter, or California, or New York City with the former Detroiter, or Charlotte, North Carolina with the former Detroiter, is get them to start putting that money back here.
Yeah.
So I think it's a template.
Amazing,
it's
man.
a template for development. I think there are going to be other templates that emerge out of this desire to re-engage former residents.
Listen, I'm forming one. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be able to be like,
yeah, no, for real.
Cause that's something that I literally thought about, but I never thought about having a group for that. You get what I mean? Like, cause I've always like I said, when I went to Kalamazoo, and I see that there's literal millionaires out there. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is 2 hours away from home.
Rapids is a pretty wealthy place too, like that, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah. The whole West Michigan period got a bunch of pockets
of money.
Literally pockets of money. Like it's crazy. And so,
and I would like your listeners to understand too that there's 3 types of capital. We mostly think of financial capital.
Talk about it.
But as the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So that's social capital. Do people trust you? Do you have good credit? Do people believe that when you say you're going to do something, you're going to get it done?
Okay.
All those type of things will create the ability for people to want to work with you. My brother puts it this way: for organizing, my brother's an activist. For organizing community, is you got good social capital in the neighborhood if you can get 10 people together for a pickup basketball game. People know you.
Right.
And so we got to think about in our community is like, okay, we may not have a lot of cash, but do we have masons? People who do stonework in our community. Do we have carpenters?
Right.
Do we have plumbers in our community? How can we barter? How can we skill share? How do we develop a system that people can donate their time?
Not use each other, but utilize each other.
Utilize, yeah, boom. That's great. That's great, man. That was great. Yeah, utilize, not use. And so, and do it in a way that's mutually beneficial, because the reality is that it might be a little while before banks start putting the money into our communities, and you might not want them. You might need to have some more level of hesitancy about that kind of funding coming back into our communities. It's just like, are they going to give it to us, or are they going to give it to somebody else to do stuff where we live?
Right.
So it's really important that we start building those social bonds. So that's the social capital. And of course, with social capital, you got to have human capital. So people trust you. They know who you are. They know you're a person of your word, that you get stuff done, that you have honor, and you do things properly. Right. And then lastly is the human capital. What can you do? Like skills development. Yeah. That's a huge challenge too, because a lot of our schools are not doing as job as training.
So what if, like you said, like we're talking about these different type of capitals, that's basically, you can use that capital if you weren't using the other two, right? So if you're in an arena where there is no more money, there is no more, like, what can you do? Can you fight? Can you build something? Can you do
it can be picking up trash. It could be tutoring services. Right. There's so much that we can do.
What are your skills as a person?
And that's the idea of investment. When you talk about not just being a consumer of music,
right?
Instead of just being one who just lives day to day just to see what can I get out of the day. When you think about what can I put into this day, saw a quote on Twitter today. He said, he says, your attitude about the future. It says your actions today says a lot about your attitude towards the future.
Okay. Yeah.
And so how do we become thinking about having an investment mindset? You know, how do we build relationships? How do we build communities?
Right.
How do I build myself
Right.
so that I'm, you know what I mean, so I can be utilized, or other people, you know, I can utilize other people. So yeah.
Yeah, making yourself a better person, pretty much.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And so, finally completing the topic. Let's get to the food, man. So
Yeah, cooking.
you touched on a little bit about how you grew up. I see on your Instagram, just for the people that didn't see it, you eat all different types of food, and it looks amazing. You know what I mean? So touch on that a little bit. Was that, you know?
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in a family with a lot of money, but I would say with my parents. So my dad's an immigrant. He's from Jamaica.
Cool.
And then my mom got to travel a bit, and through her church and through school, been to places like been to Haiti when she was younger, been to England, been to Liberia. So I had parents who helped us understand at a very early age that like Detroit is an important place.
Right.
It's a place that my dad he lived here for 30 years before he passed, and it's also a place that but it's also just a part of a bigger world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can leave here, you can come back, but this isn't all that it is. And but I also say, even if you never leave Detroit, if you're curious, there's a lot of cultures here, and I think as especially for folks, African Americans from the South, it's important that we don't think that that's not a culture, because it is a culture. And there's a lot of rich contributions that were developed and out of a lot of hard work, from the food to the music to the customs to everything.
Yeah.
We can often think that it's only folks that come from the Caribbean or Latin America, but those are the black people of culture, or people from Africa, and it's like that's not true. Yeah. But within that, it's like in addition to enjoying our own styles of food, whether it's Creole food or food from the Carolinas or food from Alabama or Tennessee, is also in Detroit. There's a lot of other food.
Right.
So early on, like when I was a kid, for example, my dad played cricket growing up.
Okay.
At Belle Isle. And this team was mostly cats from Jamaica, some dudes from Barbados and Antigua and stuff too, Grenada, but mostly Jamaicans, but we would play teams from other places. Okay. And so one cool thing about the games, and I love to eat, so a lot of times you would bring food for other teams to prepare. Teams who came, the league was in Detroit, but they also had like teams in Canada, and we would go to Canada or they would come here. And so they would serve food, and it'd be like, sometimes the dudes will bring chicken shawarma. That's not like a South Asian food, but sometimes they'll pick it up because it's halal, right?
Right, exactly.
Or you have food like biryani or Punjabi food. Just dabbing in different people's culture. Like even in the Caribbean, like there's black people in the Caribbean. There's a lot of people from who descended from India.
Right.
And so like even in Jamaica, you might hear a curry goat. Jamaica's eat curry. Yeah, of course. That's like that came from the Indian people that came to the island.
Right, because
so most Jamaicans are black, but some are not, and we borrowed from that culture. And so just being exposed to like curry and being exposed to other things, it just made me always curious about like how to mix my palate.
Gotcha.
On top of that, when I was in New York, I was going out with a woman who was vegan, and so that taught me a little, for a little bit, it taught me how to become explore food that didn't have meat in it.
Right.
And that forces you, like a lot of I would say American food, especially like American food, American Southern food, soul food, is very much built around the meat, and everything else is aside. Sure. And so by doing that, I had to look up recipes that weren't meat substitutes, but they were food traditions that were steeped in vegetarianism. So like a lot of stuff from Thailand, India, a lot of the Middle East has a lot of so when you go on my Instagram, it's a lot of food that doesn't have meat in it. And then when I moved back home, my brother, he was a vegetarian at the time. And one of my sisters in New York, she don't eat meat. So I've always had to learn how to cook, be creative. And that creativity fosters curiosity about like what are some other things to do. And so so that was and I think during the lockdown, I was kind of freaking out about it. So I was like, especially in the beginning, because we didn't know how this shit was passed. Right. It was like you can't touch stuff, you got to wipe your vegetables down. I was like, this is crazy. Like this point, I'm dead. Though. I can't survive this. If I got to wipe down everything in the grocery store. But so I was trying to limit my trips to the grocery store. So I started going to the Greenland Market over on Beach Daily and Ford Road. Okay. It's a lot of the stuff is Middle Eastern. Right. So and one thing I know is like a lot of Middle Eastern dishes, they use a lot of lemon as a preservative.
Right, of course.
So I was like, man, I could cook this. I could make this and it could last me the week. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or you know what I'm saying? This hummus you can freeze it, and then it won't go bad. So I was like,
Yeah.
so a lot of their dishes are cooked for shelf life because I'm guessing because some of it's like desert or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So things need to stay, and so like a lot of pickled stuff. So I
Right.
got into making a lot of that, and then it's YouTube.
Yeah.
I think during the quarantine, a lot of people got into cooking too because you couldn't go out to restaurants.
Of course.
So now food is
fun.
important. I would just to add on to that. My brother, if you haven't checked it out and you're in Detroit, go over to D-Town Farms. You can actually
D-Town
volunteer
Farm.
there. It's a black-owned 6-acre farm or a black managed and operated 6-acre farm, however you want to call it. I think it's black-owned,
Right.
but they're leasing the land from the city, I believe.
Okay.
And it's over in Rouge Park.
Nice.
So
Okay,
you can buy groceries there, but if you volunteer, you can also earn what they call D-Town dollars, I think. And and you can use those dollars towards getting fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
And-
like.
Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say like something like a almost like how some people have punch cards or something like it's like a punch card.
Yeah, like a punch card, yep. So every time you go, you get something back. So food is important, man. We all eat it. And I think when you start making food, too, you start realizing what might go into it. The dishes that I love, and when I made it, I was like, man, that's a lot of butter.
Right.
I probably should eat this as much as I do because
Right.
I'm trying to live.
Hey,
So knowing what goes into your food is important.
Yeah,
Cooking
makes
does
sense.
that.
Right. So last question about the food. Do you eat meat now?
I do eat meat, yeah.
Okay.
I eat meat, yep.
Yeah.
It's just that, being other people, you have to explore more. So learn how to cook with a lot of beans.
Yeah.
Apparently, beans are hella
For sure.
good for you. Like they'll extend
and
your life.
protein, yeah, exactly. It's the meat substitute.
Beans
I
are
used
real
to,
good.
Yeah, I used to work at Qdoba, man. So
Word.
I used to encounter all type of people that eat everything, all type of like some people that only eat cheese, some people that only eat vegetables,
Yes,
and everything in between.
Wow.
So people will show up. And I just knew anytime we ran out of them beans, because we only served black beans anyway, because I was in the airport, so we only had like limited selection. I knew if we ran out of them black beans, these vegans gonna be angry.
Yeah, it's gonna be a problem.
And they already lacking a little bit of protein in the first place, so so they really they coming up emotional. It's funny, I'm like the most threatening people in the world was vegans and old people.
There's gonna be tight.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Nah, beans are really
They need
important.
them
So
beans,
just learning
dog.
how to make with that. And
it
learning.
makes
My
sense,
brother's a really
Honest
good cook with his stuff, but he knows his herbs and all that. So
Shut up.
and then our dad passed of a stroke, and so learning how to cook with less salt. And that happens a lot of our communities have a lot of diabetes from a lot of bread and
Facts.
sugars,
Talk
and then stroke. And so I was like, I don't gotta there's meals that I cannot put salt in my food. So learning how to use citrus like lime, lemons, vinegars.
Put that tang in it, man. Yeah,
To compensate for the lack of salt.
Right.
So I do eat salt, I do eat meat, but learning how to balance in my life.
And I never thought about using it to actually substitute for it. Because I love adding lemon on my food. That's my number one thing. So
It won't be the same, but it helps.
I could see if I didn't dress up a salad, like I would always, like if I didn't put dressing on my salad, like if I didn't have Italian and I wasn't trying to use the ranch I had,
just vinegar.
And I had made chicken already, throw the chicken in there, lemon juice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so and that's the salad right there, the salad, lemon juice, you know what I'm saying, and chicken, and we good, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm with you there. Might as well, what other better time?
Jump into politics.
Your political affiliation. So
Life is political.
I didn't see anything I see that you don't just broadcast politics all over your page, which I appreciate. We can relate there, you know what I mean, my guy.
Yeah,
So,
I'll post about politics, but I think life is political. So I would say there's so I learned the definition of politics. It's the distribution of power and resources. So even between, you got three people walking down the street, there's a political dynamic there. Somebody at the end of the day is the leader. Somebody's going to be the follower. That's just how a political dynamic is, right?
Yeah.
So somebody in that group talks more than everybody else does, right? There's somebody in that group who's going to put in work, or there's somebody in that group, if you know that if you push them the wrong way, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
They're your friend,
Right.
but you know what buttons not to push because you just built that rapport with them. You understand?
Right.
So you can joke with them in this way, you can't joke with other people in that way. That's all politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a distribution of power. Distribution of resources can be in a household where, whoever is bringing in the check,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times what they say, go.
Exactly.
And the only way you have a family in which the check don't speak volumes is if somebody's able to use physical force.
Right.
And you see that in communities too, where
True.
despite somebody being the breadwinner, because they can be physically, subdued for a better word, or for lack of a better word, they're still not calling the shots. But there's always a political dynamic. And I think it's important that we embrace the notion of democracy.
Yeah.
Democracy is a lift every voice. That's the Black national anthem, right? Lift every voice and sing. So it's not just because you got the most money or you got the most muscle, it doesn't mean that you don't get you get hurt. You know, but nobody else does, right? And so I am very much pro-democracy. I do have a problem with the system that only values people with a lot of money.
I feel that.
Because I just don't think it's. I think when you had a system that made sure that a certain group of people couldn't get access to financial capital, it just silences us.
Right. So exactly, how could you build your society on basically, like you said, the breadwinners say what goes, and then basically now, once everybody is on a quote unquote level playing field, how they try to put it, right? Say that, okay, none of that matters because you're up already. That's why it doesn't matter. And that's why, you know what I mean, your interests are so important. And that's why, you know what I mean, like, it's, pull yourself up by your bootstraps because you had, you know what I mean, you had 12 pairs of boots before I ever had it. You know what I mean? Like,
and even recently, take the housing crash in 2009. Over 90% of Americans were against a bailout to Wall Street.
Right.
They had no stipulations about, okay, if we're going to bail them out, then as taxpayers and through the government, we now get a share in this company.
Right.
It was this money that almost like in some cases, you know, with a fine, but in terms of interest rates, very little interest to these banks that they had to pay back. A lot of them paid it back, but it was they did criminal stuff, and not only no one go to jail, but taxpayers had to bail them out when we didn't get a bailout for our mortgages that we were defaulting on. And that came about not because we didn't have the power or because we were disorganized, and we have a system in which money talks. They say money makes the world go around. So politics, I grew up being, basically being a Republican. Not basically, I was a Republican. Yeah. And I changed my perspective, I would say, when I lived in New York. When I was in New York, I was living hand to mouth, especially when I decided, I wanted to just try and learn how to make websites for small businesses. I didn't know how to build a website. Okay. And so, just scratching by to make rent. And so I had no money. And so it was one of the times in my life as an adult. When you're a kid and your parents don't have a lot of money, they still provide. But when it's now it's either you put that money up or your stuff's out on the curb. You know what I mean? That's when you start realizing like how much a dollar really is. And then also like how there's some people who they work less than you and they still never have to worry about money. And so you realize, so that changed my politics too. I would also say that, and I would love someone to challenge me on this, it becomes very hard to be a black Republican when you have a critical understanding of history.
Facts.
So when you learn about the fact, people say stuff like, slaves slaves never fought back. Or you say like, we were better off before the 1967 rebellion. My dad would joke, not joke, but he had the mindset, and I don't know if he really believed this, but it was what was told to him, that he believed that Jamaica was a more orderly society until the British left. And after that, then the countries went to shit. And it's like, that's not, when you really study like the World Bank, and the National Monetary Fund, how colonialism worked.
How do we get banks everywhere? How do we get banks that all are withholding to the same central bank?
And when you learn that a place like Barclays, the Barclays Bank was founded out of money that was earned from reparations, and it wasn't reparations that was paid to African slaves in the Caribbean. It was reparations that were paid to the slave owners of slaves. Wow. Basically, the grand bargain in England was.
Yeah, I've watched this in
exactly. It's crazy. I was just gonna say, like we complain about reparations, how it's so unrealistic, but the reality is that in a lot of societies, whether
most
it be
people
France,
have been paid reparations. If a wrong has been done, they were paid reparations.
They lost property.
Right.
We forget that our beautiful great-great-grandmothers, our beautiful great-great-great-grandfathers were property.
Right.
And it was like, oh, you trying to take my chair away? AKA human?
So they
you got to pay me back. England basically was like, we'll emancipate slavery in the Caribbean in exchange for reparations. It was actually the largest of transfer of wealth in English history, from my understanding, and it was the white lower working class that ended up paying off. And that class warfare is critical to understanding race, for one. In my opinion, it's critical to understanding American politics. So, I consider myself more progressive-minded, especially on economics, especially socially too. I'm more of I used to be pretty socially conservative, and now I'm more of a mindset of as long as people are happy and safe, that's what I care about. Who you choose to love, or how many kids you want to have, or how you want to have kids or don't want to have kids, that's your business. So that's where I am now. I believe I'm a big democracy person, though. I think a group is better off when everyone's moving together versus, you know, it's either you like it or you can leave. That kind of mind, I'm not with that.
And it's funny because, like how you said it, like you say when a group is moving together, but a part of a group moving together is, like you said, democracy. As a group, we're deciding on these things. Yeah. We're not having a couple people decide for the group and saying, "Hey, group, come on this way."
And it's consensus. It's consensus. Like obviously, majority rules in our electoral system. However, the reality is that if you win 50%, 55% of the vote, and the other 45 loses, you still have to live with that 45.
Exactly.
So it's not just majority rules; it's also minority rights.
Right. Ooh. Okay. Yeah,
so it's like, you know what I'm saying. So that's politically, I feel like we got it as, and I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about, in addition to politics being the distribution of power and resources, one of the core questions of American democracy in particular, because of race as a permanent class structure, is the real question is, if I need you, can I count on you?
Right.
So you talk about Black and non-Black Hispanic. So I always want to be mindful of the fact that we have a lot of people blacker than me and you who speak Spanish fluent.
Talk about it.
Right. So I hate saying Black versus Hispanic, right? Because I know the people who fall into both.
Yeah.
But you talk about like Black and non-Black Hispanic Latino relationships, right? Or Black and Arab, non-Black Arab American relationships. I also want to acknowledge our brothers and sisters in southern Iraq and in Egypt who are darker than us and speak Arabic fluent. So we got to make sure that, you know, we know that we global. We are, you know, we was everywhere, and we are everywhere.
Exactly. And so, and that's the thing. On this podcast, at least, this is one audience that pretty much understands that. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're here for. You know what I mean? Like we diversity amongst ourselves. Exactly.
And so, so that's where I am politically, and I think you kind of touched on like what was it like growing up different in Detroit. You know, my dad was a minister.
Yeah, and that's what the last thing
teacher.
Get into, like, to frame the question exactly. One, what was it like growing up in Detroit? Because you were about to say that. Sorry about that. But part B about that is, were you ever made the point of ridicule, like, based on you being a different type of, you know what I mean, black male?
Yeah, so like, and just to touch on a point with like if I need you, can I trust you? It's like, you know, we're talking about, we use the term people of color now. And I think some black folks, we roll our eyes at that because it's like, okay, we people of color, but you still see me as inferior. So you're talking about us as a collective group.
Right.
When I know that at the end of the day, we're not being treated the same. We're not treating each other as equals. And so I think the question in politics, and that's what Trump understands very well, this is what I worry that Biden and Kamala Harris might not understand as well, unfortunately, is that question. Americans go to the polls or don't go to the polls thinking, when I need you, can I count on you?
Right.
What's your track record, and what's the plan you have going forward? Can I trust you? And I think politically that's going to be a big question going forward. Trump is trying to signal to his base that if you need me, I got you.
Yep. No matter what it is.
If you need
I'm
me,
down for the team.
I got you. And I don't think. Go ahead.
And basically the team that we're on is basically saying like, hey, listen, I got y'all.
You know what he's saying.
You know
what he's saying.
Yeah,
and he's saying he's a wink. It's a wink, and he's saying if you know. And I think one of the biggest winks, we keep talking about white voters. One of the biggest winks is not towards white voters. It's to shareholders. It's to the investor class.
Yeah.
It's saying that I'm going to cut your taxes.
Yep.
I will make sure that we don't extend unemployment benefits. I will make sure that I won't tighten regulations to make sure that the water stays clean if it's going to cut their profit margins. Trump,
mob shit.
I don't think Trump has really been that great to the white working class at all. No. I just think that because race is...
the way he talks and the way he presents himself, and whenever there's something that might present him as not being for them, he outright ignores it. You know what I mean? And then you know, tweet something on accident.
I think one of the real dangers is that the media is so elitist and also so corrupt in and of itself. Is that the real critiques of Trump, yes, we should talk about what the atrocities happening at the U.S. border, or southern border, right? We should talk about, what he's doing to reproductive rights, what he's doing to the transgender community around the military and targeting them for. There's no reason why he should be doing that. We've settled that issue already, and he's bringing it back up. But what he's doing with HUD.
Yeah.
What he's doing with
HUD, that's the thing that Ben Carson is over.
Oh, Ben Carson, yeah, and he's from this area. He's from the Southwestern. Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Yeah, we're not proud anymore. We
were. Yeah, Get the Hands.
Oh God.
Yo, yeah, we love that. I love that book. Get the Hands.
Lifetime movie. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
All that. Yeah.
So now, I think we have to talk about the environment. What he's doing with the Environmental Protection Agency. How many of us have read the CARES Act and understand that it could turn into a $6 billion giveaway to Wall Street by the end of this, and that could also consolidate industry so that more small retailers are going to go out of business, and it's going to make a few large businesses wealthier. So understanding how he's actually making the income divide worse in America, educationally, we'll have our children just won't be as well educated in the next 4 or 10 years. Right. And when you talk about what it means for society to be undereducated, you don't realize it today.
Right.
You just realize in 10 years that your workforce is not good.
Yep. And then you look back and say, hey,
it's like what we did with the trades. We cut all the trades in school.
Yep.
And now construction prices are through the roof in Michigan. And we didn't realize it when we were doing it in the late 90s and 2000s. Yep. We realize it now because all those kids that were in 8th grade in 1998 are grown folk now.
My granddad's probably one of the only carpenters I know, and who built this fence over the last couple of months.
Wow.
And he's 87 right now. Yeah.
Who's going to replace him?
Exactly.
When he doesn't feel like doing that every day and breaking his knuckles every day, who's going to step in?
And this is just for our house, you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean?
Nice fence.
Appreciate you, boss. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but that's just what I'm saying. Like, yeah, somebody.
And the media won't ask those. There are people in the media who are asking those questions. Go get the book Goliath, which talks about the history of monopoly in the United States, right? Go get the book Home Records by Aaron Glass. It talks about the what happened after the 2009 collapse and how we consolidated home ownership. Yeah. So Detroit in a matter of 20, 30 years went from a majority homeowner city to a majority renter city.
Right.
What does that mean for the black? What does that mean for the black class that we talk about, black community we talk about?
When it comes to wealth, if you can't pass a house down when you die, like
for most American families,
you're probably gonna pass down some debt. You're gonna pass down a bill. You know what I mean? If you're not gonna pass down some wealth, you're probably gonna pass down some debt.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Yeah, we've been inheriting debt over and over and over, and certain generations, like we had black people were leaving. You know what I mean? Wealth behind because not this house, but across the street from me, my grandparents had like what you could call godparents.
Okay.
And they ended up leaving us 3 houses.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, one on Ethel Street out here, Sturtevant Street in the city, and Stahallen Street in the city as well.
Oh, wow.
So and we're not even blood related to those people. You see what I mean? So
But again, your view of the future, your actions today show your attitude of the future.
Exactly, and they had the wealth in order to
and
really
foresight.
Yeah, exactly. They knew what they were doing, and they knew how to do it, and so that's what I've always thought about.
And that's politics. That's politics.
Definitely it's politics, but I had no idea about the Detroit going from a owner city to a renter city. Like I got to look into those type of because I love statistics, but I don't know which are the right ones to even look into. I really just look them up to combat stupid people that just blurt them out. You know what I mean?
Well, the shame is that it's not hard. It's not easy to find that information on cable news. It's a lot of opinion, but they're not bringing on academics, people who study this stuff and have data. It's people's opinions.
I haven't watched cable news probably. I can't say in years, just because I know what Clear Channel is. You know what I mean? And that's all I'll say. You know what I mean? We can move on from that, but from that, I have no real reason to so I'll listen to The Breakfast Club, even though they're you know what I mean, even though but they're iHeart, but at the same time, those are just personalities that are just they got rumors. They're saying what they think. They're saying things that might not be on TV
and everything and all that stuff.
Exactly, and everything else. When I hear about it, if I do hear about it on social media, I'm going to actual sources on the internet to find real
one thing I'll say about the Breakfast Club on politics is that they will bring on a variety of people. Some people you'll disagree with, some people you agree with, But they'll bring out a wider variety. And when you talk about, like, I worry that, like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm supporting Kamala and Joe Biden.
That's real.
However, I need Kamala Harris to talk about her record.
Talk about it. Yeah.
You got, because you can't just, it's like if you know you and somebody got a problem. It's possible for y'all to squash that beef and live together as cordially and as as civilized humans.
Yeah.
But for us to be around each other and act like nothing ever happened.
Right. It would.
Even if that should happen in 5th grade and you bullied me in 5th grade, or you know, you went and told my girlfriend that I was with so and so just so that you could get with her. Right? That was, we was 5th grade, and now we're 35, right? But to you to come around and act like nothing ever happened, you need to own it and be like, yo, I was on wrong then. I've grown up.
You need her to reconcile.
Reconcile. You have to do reparations. Like, man, you got to do a gesture just to show, like, look, man, I know I did wrong, and here's something to make up for. Even if that was years ago, or you just have to be understanding that you and that person might not ever really get on. And if it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. Right. Now, with a person like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they need to answer their record, and again, for our community, who especially younger folks like me and you, we're not like our grandparents who are going to toe the Democratic line. We're going to ask them that question. If we need you, can we count on you?
Exactly. Like, we're ready to, if not cross the line, straight just drop the line. Listen,
that's what people going to do.
And that's where,
And that's the scary part, because Trump is very dangerous. What he's doing to this country is very, very dangerous.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of things we've assumed about this country we can no longer assume because of what he's doing. Not that he was the first one to do some of this stuff, but he's amplifying it so much more. And
seen it done with this with this boldness, you know what I mean? Like,
the stuff with the post office is so calculated.
Yeah, my dad is a post office, man. Like,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
so,
it's crazy.
So yeah, that's all I think on. And growing up in Detroit, being Republican, my nickname was White Boy as a kid because that's how I spoke.
Okay.
And how I speak, and and I will speak. I understand that how you speak is a lot of times how you're treated. Also, when I was growing up in my house, my parents didn't speak. They didn't speak with any sort of. My dad was from the Caribbean, but he didn't even let us speak Patois at home. Right. So we had to speak like King's English. Like if he heard us trying to imitate how his cricket buddy spoke, speaking Patois, or how some of his siblings spoke, he would shut it down. And then with my mom, she didn't speak with any Southern intonation, or she didn't speak with I call it like a Black English, like people call Ebonics.
Slang, Ebonics, whatever.
Ebonics could be. I think we should take the pejorativeness out of it because we should be proud of that way of speaking.
I love it. I think it's called being. I think that's part of being bilingual. Like
amen.
Because there are words that are used in slang that you wouldn't understand, just like if you were somewhere else.
Especially if you were, say for example, you were from China, you learning English.
Exactly, bro.
You would know English, but you don't know what they're saying.
And also, even how like in China, or in Japan, rather, I don't know if China's the same, but you read from right to left.
Yeah.
So even the way they phrase things may be worded differently. You know what I mean? Like just exact syntax. Exactly. So
hearing older black people speak, whether it's them speaking Jamaican English or Patois, speaking Southern, they're from Mississippi, Alabama. Hearing them speak, it's not even what they say; it's the way they say it.
Yeah.
It's the cadence, it's the intonation that they can be. People be laughing just because of how they said it.
Exactly. Because it's so different from what. Yeah, exactly.
It's an art form.
And so the whole white boy thing, how did that make you feel when it first occurred? Like did it? Did you own it immediately, or did it take time?
I hated it.
Yeah,
I hated it because it was it's emasculating.
Exactly.
It's a way of saying street terms. I guess you're not a real nigga.
Right.
But that means you're not a real man.
Right.
You're not macho, super machismo, and that's tough because, I was young. I was from fifth grade going up to, fourth grade going up to I heard that. I went to a white high school, so pretty much I didn't really hear it that much anymore. Right. I went to U of D, so I didn't hear it that much anymore. But it can feel emasculating, and what it can do is that either you can. Unfortunately, you could be yourself and just move along, but what happens is that kind of dynamic tends to it'll push you. So if you say you're running in a straight line, it could throw you off, meaning you're going to go to one way or the other way. So I think you'd be like, no, I don't want to be white boy. I'm going to start speaking the way everyone else speaks. And you too, to an extent, learn how to code switch and drop the G off the word and stuff like that as well.
Exactly.
Or you can go the opposite way of starting to resent black people.
Right. Right.
And
Listen,
that we will understand that happens to a lot of cats.
I appreciate you touching on this because this is where I always try to make my like I'm that guy in my family that tries to make them understand. Like when we push away our own, you know what I mean?
You create a monster.
Yeah, exactly. You're
you're
creating a whole soldier for them. You know what I mean? Like and I can't blame the person. I'm like, even when I look at people like celebrities are so much like so demonized in our culture, especially with the Christian thing, you know what I mean, added onto it. Like I was told all celebrities even worship the devil. You know what I mean? We can get into that a whole different time, but we know what I'm talking about. Like as black people, we know what I'm talking about. So this is how we look at it. Like, so I can't be upset with this random black millionaire for not just putting money into any hood he sees. Because they think he's the devil. Why you know what I mean? Like what type of attitude would you think that would create? You know what I mean? And so go ahead. That was
good. That was really good.
I think that's so important.
Yeah, I grew up in addition to having a father who was, you know, my parents are both black. My mom's a lighter skinned black woman. My dad was a very dark skinned Jamaican man.
Gotcha.
They have a very nuanced view of race. So in Jamaica, most people are what you would consider black. Even Kamala Harris's father was a light-skinned man. Right. He operates in a different racial space in Jamaica. There's a bit color is very important now. It kind of is in the South too.
I'm hit, man.
Color, yeah. So like you probably see in Latin America too. Like, color is very important. Right. So everyone's black, but then you have color differences. But at the end of the day, you never grew up with like a lot of working class white people who are antagonistic towards black people. My dad didn't understand that. My mom's family came up from Macon, Georgia, from I forget the town of Tennessee, but my mom's from Tennessee. Oh. So their view of white people is not the same as a lot of times what a Jamaican person views as white people.
Gotcha.
Right? You understand white people as like people at the top with a lot of money, but you don't interact with them a lot, so you don't have that sort of like weird.
They're like unicorns, kind of like.
Yeah,
not
you see
exactly,
them,
but it's
around,
like
but they're not a lot of them. Not a lot of them. I think white Jamaicans make up about 1% of the population, so it's they're there, but they're not. You don't see. You're not gonna like. You don't. They're not a thing like it is here. Or you can go to all white towns. That is impossible.
You ain't gonna find a pocket of them.
It's impossible in Jamaica. So it's sprinkled. You have some areas that you'll have more of them, but they're still mixed in with black people. Like their kids are gonna end up being black. So there's that dynamic. Whereas, I would say like, you know, in addition to having a father who didn't see the world like many other black Americans would.
Right.
It affected me in terms of like he would say like if you marry a white woman and you love her, that's okay with me. My mom, I think today she would just want me to be happy, but she would be disappointed if I married a white woman, just because their lenses are so different.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's not that Jamaican. I mean, most Jamaican people I know are married to not just a black person, but a Jamaican or Caribbean or a black person of some sort. Right. It's not like it's all common that Jamaicans going out marrying white people, but just the lens on race is different. So I would say growing up as a kid, being called white boy, having a father that wouldn't buy me the latest hip hop clothes, like I'm wearing stuff. I'm wearing stuff that he had to wear, like when he was skinnier, like just dressed in corny. And then I went to a school that's predominantly white, and I played lacrosse in school. I played soccer. My dad taught me to play soccer. I grew up playing cricket on Bilal. So like, you know, I was black, but when you're constantly like, put it this way, if I was ever to go into an environment with other kids my age and get teased, I was most likely to get teased by black kids. Right. Now I would say that caveat that was that I went to church in the suburbs, but I never went to like a white school in the suburbs. Right. So the reality is that I still did spend most of my time around black people. Right. So I think when you're around somebody a lot, but you feel like you're having negative interactions with them, you can create a negative viewpoint on them. So like I became resentful of other black people to an extent, and thought that like, and kind of in a way put white people on a pedestal until I got to high school and was around more white kids and realized there's nothing special about them.
I got you.
But I think anytime you're around a certain amount of people all the time, you can criticize the volume we play our music. You can criticize our family structures. You can criticize so many behaviors. Not understanding that if you go to any place in the world, you're gonna see families that are single mother families. You're gonna see kids that are running the streets. Like that's what poverty and a cyclical oppression will do to any people. Yes, but being in Detroit a lot and then having feeling ostracized, you can be really critical of your
That's real,
own.
man.
Seriously.
But that's also an example of why we need to teach our kids. Picking on the kid is one thing, because I mean, all kids get picked on for something. I was the fat kid, so either I was gonna bully kids because I was bigger than them, or I was gonna get picked on because I was fat. So like, it was like everybody had something. I guess, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like that they had to get past. And but I think we should make it a point in the black community to teach our kids,
It's a lot of ways
all
to be,
black people are your brothers and sisters.
it's a lot
You know
of
what I
ways,
mean?
a lot of ways to be black.
Right. And so that we need to teach each other that we aren't a monolith before we even claim it. You know what I mean? Like, we can't just keep telling everybody we're not a monolith when we present ourselves to be such, or condition each other to think that we're that. Because, I've gotten the same thing. You know what I mean? I've never gotten white boy per se, just because I was the guy, I was the kid that, like, I was the funny kid, the class clown. So that I didn't have to be the street kid. I didn't have to be the tough kid. Because I broke the ice. You know what I mean? But also, I always loved words. So I was the kid that was still good at spelling and everything. So I used that to my advantage, and I would use my vocabulary. Like, I liked using my vocabulary. So they never, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm gonna throw out a controversial idea too.
Yeah.
So you will hear black people say, "I'm not talking white. I'm not speaking white. I'm speaking educated. I'm talking like I have an education."
Right.
I disagree with that.
Right. You're just enunciating. That's the difference.
I disagree with that just because I understand when I'm speaking white. Like, I noticed that, when I was around, like, all the white kids I played soccer with, because I constantly was code shifting, like, code shifting. Like, when I went around West Indian people, I would learn how to speak in a general Caribbean Creole or speak Jamaican patois. I knew how to speak in front of my dad and my mom. If I wanted to speak like a Detroit, in an African American way,
you
I would speak that
bilingual.
way.
I get it, man.
So there is a way to speak like a Valley girl, like you grew up in Birmingham, Michigan, or Novi, Michigan. Like, there is a way to speak that way, and I've done it. I do it. I do it less so now because I'm growing more into myself. But especially in high school, you could talk a certain way, and I think black people understand that there's power in the words, in the way that we speak.
Right.
And so I will
because
say
of how it makes other people react.
How it make other people react. Exactly. So and for me, you'll hear me talk more black or sound more black when I feel comfortable with somebody.
Yeah, right. I understand because in your mind you're still trying to be professional with them,
even
right?
if they're black.
I get because, like I said before, the ice is completely broken. You're still professional with them, quote unquote, and that's where your professionalism lies. Which a lot of us, quote unquote, like when it comes to professional, throw on our white voice. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When it's time for the job interview, it's not like I remember one time. This was probably I'm talking about one time. This was 2 months ago, during the pandemic. I'm in the house. As I should have been. I get a call. I answer the phone. I said, "Yeah." The lady said, hello, and she didn't even get offended. Hello, I'm here. I'm like, my friend likes to shout out to her because I'm not gonna blow her spot up. She likes to write me down as whatever you call it, recommendations on her on her applications. So they think I own a business. So now they've called me to see how she does in my business.
Oh my god!
And I didn't.
Oh no!
The next words that came out of my mouth. Yes, I own the business. Like, I done created a whole business in my head. Like, it was, good work, but
You know what we call that?
Hilarious.
We call that politics.
Right.
You understood that the
Right.
power
Of
and
course.
resources distributed to you just through that phone call is predicated on.
Exactly. How she perceived me through, without even seeing me.
And it's racialized.
Yep.
Because you can speak, you can drop every G. You can never say no, it's always no.
Yeah.
And be smart as hell.
Yeah.
Be quick with the math.
Right.
In terms of just intuition and common sense, quick with it. You figure
Exactly.
stuff out. But because nobody, and I think going back to the start of the conversation, one reason why I think so many kids, in addition to that's what they saw, in addition to kids, white people, and that's why I think older black elders didn't understand in the 90s and the early 2000s was that black kids are not just saying they want to become a basketball player or a rapper because it's the only thing they know.
Right.
Because the reality is that a lot of us grew up with the pastor, a lot of us grew up with the teacher, a lot of us grew up seeing a dentist. We knew these other professions are out there.
Again, my dad's a post office.
A lot of us, we gravitate to these positions. It's because it's what I could, how do I say? It's a job I can have with my dignity It's a job I can have. I can be myself.
Exactly. I don't have to code switch
I don't have
at
to
work.
code switch. If
So
I'm
it's
a
like
rapper
I'm
or
not
an
at work.
athlete, I can speak the way I want to speak. I'm being me, and I think that's something that we don't take into consideration.
I never wanted to work in an office until I saw Wolf of Wall Street. I said, "Shit, I'll work there.
I'll work there, get that
I'm
money."
with it. Give me a couple Quaaludes. I'm
But
out.
if you knew that, if you knew a couple
Kidding. Comedy style.
but you knew that if you could get the same money and wear jeans to work every day, you do that too.
Yeah. Right.
And now everybody wants to become a programmer.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but
I was
want to
just
become a
about to bring up program, like how we talking about being an engineer. Programming, like, you can do what you want, be how you want, and like, listen, when I saw what's the movie about Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn working at Google? You remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
But as long as you remember the movie,
yeah.
Like, once I saw how Google was, because they made a documentary right around the time. Yeah, like
all the snacks.
Yeah, like, come on, man.
Scooters
pods.
everywhere.
I just want the pod. Like, and so when you see an environment where a job will allow people to be themselves, that's why Google is worth $umpteen billion because
they get the best talent.
And people want to do the best. They want to show. It's almost like, hey, look what I did. You want your company to be proud of you because you're proud to work there. You know what I mean? Like, hey, look what I did. You know what I mean? Like. And
this is why
get that recognition.
This is one reason why to build off of that. I'm so excited about this moment. I mean, in the face of a president who might not want to leave office even if they lose the election, I think he can still win pretty easily. Actually, if you think about it,
right.
We assume that people who normally don't vote still won't vote in the next election.
Talk about it.
And only a little over 50% of Americans vote, and that includes like some very conservative-minded folk. So we got to think about that. And then also,
I'll say I'm willing to, but I wouldn't normally. I haven't yet, even though I was able to last time. I just did. If I don't like the choices, like if I'm told, hey, you just got to pick the lesser of two evils, I'm not picking evil. Like so, so I'm like, as long as if I can still live here and I vote, I will. And so, but go ahead,
But I was just say that in the face of a guy who I think is, could do real damage to his country financially, he can still win. But despite all of that, I'm excited about this generation of Black Americans, African Americans, because we have a global perspective on ourselves.
Yeah.
We understand. I think every generation knew that you could go to work you could go to the army and go be in Germany or Japan.
Right.
But now, I think more so through Instagram, Twitter, Black folks are connecting with folks in Brazil. I mean, you're having growing numbers of African Americans who are leaving the U.S. to go live in Thailand, go live in Ghana, West Africa, go live in Brazil.
Yeah, Ghana offers dual citizenship, right?
Yep. Barbados has dropped that program where you can go there for 12 months with the stamp.
Nice.
So a lot of us are realizing, like, I could go live in other places. And I know there's Black folks out there. I'm not just going there because the Army sent me. And then I think because of talking about the amount of careers that we're now more not only familiar with, but we know how to access it at an increased rate. I think it's helpful. I think the fact that more of us are embracing the people, Black folks in our community who were always different, that were always there but were invisible.
Right. Yep.
I think the internet is giving folks, like, take the LGBTQ community. They've always been around, but now they're visible and they're able to create their own communities online and also more
when you're able to move confidently, you get a whole different amount of work done and a whole different type of work done because you're not also trying to...
You're not bound by the folks in your neighborhood. Like, say you're into anime.
Yeah. Thank you. Touch on it.
People were into anime in the 90s. But, like, you might be the only person in this block.
Yes.
But now you connect with other cats in Detroit, skateboarding kids in Detroit.
Thank you.
Now,
yeah.
So you can build a community. You can build communities, even though, because before it's hard to build a skate community when you're the only kid that's skating and get good.
Exactly.
But when you can, like, now on Twitter find a meetup spot, on Facebook find a meetup spot. So I
got to be a thing first. It has to be an infrastructure, like so they say. Like, I get it, man. Yeah, I had to go to 2 cities over to find a card trading shop. You know what I mean? Like when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh card, and I still couldn't play them with nobody. I only ever played Yu-Gi-Oh against myself. I probably still never played anybody in Yu-Gi-Oh ever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
never found nobody to play.
What's that Twitter? Black Nerd, the Black Nerd project, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's all these things now that, like, people now are like, I'm not different. Right. Like, I'm different from maybe people immediately around me, but there's so many people like me.
The thing is, you know what's crazy? This is why it flips so much in them going from being ridiculed, or us even, going from being ridiculed to celebrated. It's because when we found out, it's not that I'm weird. I'm just not average. You feel me? Yeah. Some people are are cool with settling for mediocrity, because that's the thing. If you're speaking Ebonics and you're everything that it looks like, you know what I mean, like it's celebrated, but you're not happy doing that because you're just doing it for the crowd, you having a way worse existence than I am being ridiculed for being myself.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, amen.
like,
and I would say, like, now we see Ebonics just not as like a way, not something that white people ridicule us for. We're now embracing it as an art form, because now, getting with the internet, we can dig into history more.
Yeah.
So we'll understand that, like, the way that people speak in the South is actually not super different than how people might speak in the Bahamas.
Exactly.
So, like, we're just so connected, and I think it's the most dangerous thing for the American project in a way, because it's what they always wanted to prevent, right? The language, shared language, and shared identity, right? Because they understood that if we could organize, then white supremacy was in trouble.
Exactly.
And so I think that, like, and so talking about average, like, for so long, people had to shrink themselves in order to be accepted. And those who chose not to are going to be above average, because now I say you get good at what you do a lot of.
Yep.
And so if you never conformed and just kept sticking with what you wanted,
thank you, man.
now you're a beast, because now everybody's turning to you for that info.
I'll tell you how, like, what you just said is just so y'all know, this is definitely our first time meeting. This isn't like some industry stuff. Like, we literally just met today, right? So I'll tell you 100% right, because you looking at the living proof of that. When I was growing up, man, I didn't even realize this all the way back. I was a trendsetter. You know what I mean? Like, I was drumming when I was like from the time I was about 3. Like, I used to love drumsticks even before I could play. Like, so once I could have rhythm, appreciate, like, I've always loved music. So by the time I was 6, I was good enough to drum at church. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But kids told me it was stupid. Bottom line, I was in 1st grade. A lot of kids like, you drum, like, that's dumb. Like, why was you bringing drumsticks to school? Like, I used to beg to bring my drumsticks to school. I brought them and I got made fun of. You know what I'm saying? And so I stopped drumming. By the time 2nd, 3rd grade came around, I wasn't drumming at all no more. What happened 2 years later? 5th grade, Drumline comes out.
Oh shit, everybody's trying to drum.
I get to a school called Sabbath. It's right around the corner from here. Everybody got the hard top marching band snare. I'm talking about the same exact key. Like, I remembered. This is why I remember my whole life, because I remembered at that time.
Damn.
Like, you just told me 2 years ago was a what?
Yeah.
And so from that moment, I'm like, okay, like, I noticed it, but I still didn't have enough confidence to keep doing me. So I started writing raps in 6th grade. The thing about writing raps that was good, I never told anybody I was writing raps.
Oh shit.
So that was my thing. Right. Even though even some of my friends said, man, that's lame to write rap. I'm like, yeah, you right. You know what I'm saying? But still at home, I'm writing my raps. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. So, but I was becoming a beast. You know what I'm saying? Like, so while everybody else was doing their thing, you know, I went through my box top phase. Everybody told me, no, this ain't juice. This ain't the 90s. I cut it off. Next thing you know, everybody got box tops. I grew my hair out. I didn't really care about combing my hair. That's what I never really cared about. I always wanted my hair, but I never wanted to comb it for whatever reason, right? They comb your hair, man. You look, I'm like, why y'all care about how I look? I cut my hair off. Next thing you know, no haircut, white buffs. Trifle, look, it's a Doughboys Cash Out song. Everybody stopped cutting their hair. What? So from that moment, though, in high school, I said I would never listen to what everybody else says again.
Back in the 90s, dreads was just a roster thing. Cool Running.
Crazy. Right.
And now
right.
Waka
Cool
Flocka
Running,
dropped that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It was they made it a gimmick almost, or they tried to slap a gimmick onto you for having them. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't. But when you look into the power of, you know what I'm saying, like, or the powerful story and history of, you know what I'm saying, what was going on with locks and why people with locks, because I never understood when I was younger, like, this dude that worked at our school, he had, you know, locks. He would cut into us if we said he had dreadlocks. He like, I have locks. I don't have I don't have dreads. So, like, it took me years.
Jamaica,
you know,
they still
to
say
understand.
dread though.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's more American, where it's kind of like it's pejorative.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
When I go back, my uncle's
and that's good to know.
He wears dreads and like but no, some people say locks. They feel it has less stigma to it.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So, like, you know.
But yeah, this our hair form is like, you know, these are things that. You go to the average beauty salon store in Detroit, and it's not black people selling you your hair beauty products. So the thing which is scorn.
So what would you think they even know about you?
The thing which is scorn is what they now is capitalized on.
Right.
Going back to the conversation around hip hop, they tell kids, don't become a rapper, don't do this. What is can you name me a white sex symbol in terms of women celebrities and musicians right now? I mean, people try to say Taylor, but no one's talking about Taylor stuff like that.
No, like
like
in music
Madonna
right
used to be and all that? No, it's all black women. It's all black women. And you say what you want to say about Cardi B, she's black.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, everything that they've scorned. So hip hop is pop culture for better or for worse.
Exactly.
It's mainstream.
Exactly. The way that hip hop is so cool now, people would never think that it was ever not cool, and ever not the thing to put all over the radio, and ever not the thing to broadcast. Like, you know, you wouldn't think that it had the struggle.
NSYNC could not survive right now.
Right, man. And look,
NSYNC could not survive right now. It's just hip hop time.
That's a great place because I see my my battery is getting there, but that's a good thing to touch on. Next time, you know, because we definitely got to talk again, man. Groups, man. We like black people need groups again. You know what I mean? Like dope, my dad plays pretty much any instrument he touches. So like, I've always wanted like a family band or something. Like everybody in my family sings a lot of like. I just always wanted stuff like that because I'm like, when you look back, like you said, the '90s, like all you saw was like groups, black singer group, black singer group. Now, you know what I'm saying? What?
It'd be interesting to understand how labels have changed that.
They don't want to do 5 contracts no more.
Yeah, and the finances and stuff like that.
Because they're going to break it up and find the ones they want anyway.
From a marketing standpoint, it's hard to market a group versus market one person and celebrity. You know what I mean?
You think so? You think it's harder to market a group?
I think it's harder to market a group because
I think it's harder to market a group as a group, but if you're letting people keep their personalities within the group, I think it can be easy.
It can be done, but they don't want you to keep the personality. You know what I mean? So often, artists are told what's going to sell is not going to sell. If you have a chance, look up the Vice media story on the history of "It Wasn't Me" by Shaggy.
It wasn't me, but
that song was never supposed to pop.
The
only reason it popped is because a DJ in Hawaii legally streamed it.
Crazy.
Off of LimeWire.
Of course.
That song was not supposed to pop because no one thought it was going to be good. And so I think with groups, is like, what they're going to say is like, they're going to say that person's holding you back.
Right, exactly.
Now with groups, it's assumed that somebody's going to go solo. That's assumed.
Right. And I say, I feel like they always wanted to push it towards that in the first place. So that's why I say, you know, we're going to do these original 5 contracts, but we're going to start molding this guy to, you know what I'm saying, get away from these other guys. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get the Ralph Tresvant away from everybody else. We're going to get Bobby away from everybody else. We're going to get, you know what I mean? Like, you get what I mean? Michael.
The Migos have...
Quavo was Beyonce, and all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I don't know if you heard about their contract situation or whatever. Like, yeah, they're suing their lawyers right now because they just found out this year that their lawyers were also QC's lawyers.
Yeah.
Big surprise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not a surprise to anybody else, but to them, I guess that would be a surprise if you wasn't watching your business. But around the time when that whole Quavo was Beyonce type of thing 2 years ago was going on, they renegotiated his contract. His renegotiation gave QC more control and more money from his ventures than he had before. Because he wasn't watching. He was just trusting the lawyers. Oh yeah, renegotiate for me. Appreciate you, bro.
Remember that white rapper Krayshawn?
Of course.
I mean, she had an accountant who was supposed to pay taxes, was never paying them.
Really?
She got hit with the crazy bill. I think they seized her account, froze her account, and everything. So no, I would say that you know, anyone listening to this, the takeaways from this, from my perspective, is embrace yourself because you're an expert in something.
Right.
There's people who are experts in doing nothing. You give them a day, and I'll waste it. Right? I will find a way to waste the day.
Make sure nothing happens.
Nothing happens. You know what I'm saying? Some people are troublemakers. No matter how the nicest people you put around them, they're gonna fight. They're gonna cause a problem. That's what they're good at. That's what they have specialized in. It's the heritage they got from their parents. It's how to raise
pick situations apart.
How to raise hell.
They could be good at analytics, but because of they're stuck in their lower self.
Exactly. So we're good at what we do a lot of.
Right.
Habits are important.
Right.
So think about the habits that you're forming today and what you get good at. If you have a passion, there's more likely other people who are interested in it. So never let anybody tell you what you should be interested in.
Facts.
It sounds corny, but there's so many times people think, I'm not good at this, or people say I'm not good at this. Let me do something else. And it's like, well, if that's what you love. Right. Go 100. Yeah. And then the world is big, so keep exploring. Even Detroit. You think you know Detroit? Like, I came back from Detroit after being gone for almost a decade, or basically a decade, and realized there's so much parts of the city I'd never been in. Like,
right.
And it's like the East Side. I knew nothing about the East Side.
I stayed in West most of my life too.
So it's remember my first time being downriver.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a whole
so like this, seriously, I never driven down this part, been down these parts ever before. So, just explore Detroit and, build with positive people. Getting to do this podcast was dope, man. Talking to you and connecting. So, yeah.
My God, man. Well, listen, I hope y'all got something out of this like we did. And
Yeah, this is dope.
we're gonna do this again soon. Hopefully, maybe even hopefully, like, so we can schedule it ahead of time around election time.
I think that'd be dope. Yeah.
Around election, me, you, and Trav.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
probably, hopefully,
me and Trav talk politics heavy.
I'm
So,
sure.
and he got some real
Off
strong
our
ideas.
conversation, I can only imagine what y'all go through.
He got some strong
love it.
ideas.
Yeah, man. So yeah, hey, peace and black power.
Be good,
We
y'all.
out.